Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. We're delighted you're in class with us. And today we're going to be broadcasting about health. And it is our good fortune to have in the front of the classroom Stephen Heuer of Synergistic Nutrition, SGN80.com, SGN80.com. Welcome, Stephen Heuer.
Good morning. How you doing, Vincent?
Hey, good morning. I wanted to thank you for keeping the seat warm while I was away, and you spent some time with Dr. Shealy. Is that right?
Yeah, I did. That was an enjoyable interview. It's like nice being interviewed by somebody that's like right on the same page.
Well, you and I talked off the air, and I said, I know that you would really enjoy meeting Dr. Norman Shealy, and I wanted to introduce you, and I thought, what better way to introduce you and Norm Shealy and let you spend some time together than spending an hour on the air. So I'm so glad that it worked out that way. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. So, by the way, one of the products that I consume that comes from Synergistic Nutrition is called Synergy One. And is it okay with you if we talk a little bit about Synergy One today?
Yes, I would love to introduce more people to this because it is amazing in its ability to improve quality of life for most anybody.
Okay. So, class, let me describe what this is. This is a small bottle. It's a brown bottle to prevent light from damaging the ingredients, and it has a little spray top with a cap. And what I do is I just in the morning, before brushing my teeth, before eating, before drinking any water, before doing anything, I just spray 3 sprays on my cheeks, and I keep it there for at least a minute and a half at minimum. And I do the same thing before going to bed at night. Now, is that the recommended procedure, Stephen?
That's the recommended way of doing it. And there's a couple of sometimes people eat too late at night, and so their insulin levels are high before they go to bed. And in those circumstances, they would not take it at bedtime. They would wait until maybe 2-3 hours later when they get up in the middle of the night to take urinate or something. Then they can take it when their insulin is low. And the same thing in the morning. If people take it and then go drink coffee or eat pancakes and maple syrup or something, those two things would raise insulin and block the effects of what Synergy One could do. And 99% of the people that take this don't have those situations, so it's fine. They could take it morning and night when they go to bed, and they'll get the optimal results. But those are just a couple of exceptions for a few people out there that do those things.
Stephen, when you were at in Missouri at the Get Prepared Expo, did you have a chance to meet Mike Ma? He's a very interesting guy. He's of Chinese heritage. If you were to see him, the first thought is he would be a grandfatherly type. Did you get a chance to meet him?
I did not, no.
Okay. He was doing some training and very frightening kinds of training, because he would put those in his seminar or those standing around him at his booth. He'd put them on edge, and then he would say, "Okay, here's your reaction. Here's why you reacted that way, and here's why I did it. So now you know how it works." And that would be the way he would train. So first he'd show you, terrify you, and then he would say, "Here's what happened." So he spent some time here at the farmhouse over the years, and we got to know him pretty well. And he would never have a meal before bedtime. Never. Not a snack, nothing. He might drink some water, but that would be it. And he said, no, it will really mess up your metabolism, your sleep, your ability for the body to heal itself. Are you in the same camp?
Yeah, definitely. We eat a meal, and then it takes all these hours to digest. So you could imagine that if your liver is having to work too hard while you're sleeping, that you're not going to get the rest and the recuperation that you could have if the liver wasn't having to work on digesting the meal. Because the liver in the nighttime is supposed to take care of detoxifying all of your tissue structures, so that you have all this bile that's concentrated in these toxins that comes out in your bowel movements in the morning. So if you're going to be digesting this meal instead, you're not going to get to take care of that detoxification that's so important to your tissue health. There's the exception to that is if you're a rare person and you eat only raw foods. And if you eat only raw foods, then that does not burden the body, even if you eat it late at night. But that's rare. Most people eat cooked foods, and so it's better to eat earlier in the evening and not right before bed.
And the reason I mentioned that he is of Chinese heritage is because he is a practicer of ancient Chinese medicine, and this thought of not eating before bed comes with that heritage. So that's why I mentioned that. Okay, so part one of today is Synergy 1. What is it? And let me just explain that there are people who will say, I don't like the taste of that. To me, if I'm going to be taking supplements, what they taste like is irrelevant. But there are people who say, well, it doesn't taste good, so I'm not going to take it. Well, in that line of thinking, Synergy 1 has absolutely no taste. It has, to me, literally, if you were to put the taste of water versus the taste of Synergy 1, I would not be able to tell the difference. So I just wanted to make that statement.
Yeah.
So what is it? Yeah, right.
It is. There's a protein that the body produces that triggers the hypothalamus to produce growth hormone, growth hormone releasing hormone. So we've taken this particular proprietary peptide protein naturally found in the human body, put it into a delivery system whereby normally a large protein of this size cannot absorb through the mouth. But there's a delivery system that was developed by this one scientist where he uses, it's called a polymer matrix. So it's a specific kind of a carbohydrate that wraps up this protein, and because our cells of the mouth or cells of the body want that carbohydrate, it ends up that carbohydrate is chaperoning this protein into the cell and into the body. That otherwise isn't possible. So that particular protein goes up to the hypothalamus, activates the hypothalamus to produce growth hormone releasing hormone, and then growth hormone releasing hormone triggers the pituitary to produce growth hormone. Well, I should say release it because it's already produced. It's stored in the pituitary. And so it's releasing this growth hormone. Growth hormone is in the body for a short period of time. I think it's like 11 minutes or so. But in that time, it's triggered all the cells of the body to open up and absorb amino acids. It's triggered the liver and other parts of the body to produce IGF-1. And then IGF-1 is the primary growth factor that the body needs. You have the most generous production of growth hormone and IGF-1 in your growing years up to age 28. And then after age 28, and every decade after age 28, your growth hormone levels and IGF-1 levels decline by 14%. And growth hormone and IGF-1 are partnered together to, like I said, prepare the tissues, and actually virtually every cell of the body has a receptor site for the IGF-1. So the role of IGF-1 is to trigger the cell to open up and absorb amino acids. So the basic building blocks of life, the 20 different amino acids that are required for all tissue protein synthesis and enzyme production, immune system, those amino acids won't serve you any purpose unless they're absorbed into the cell. And the primary means by which they are absorbed into the cell is through the action of IGF-1 on the cell, triggering it to open up and allow the cell to absorb these amino acids. So once the amino acids are in the cells, then the cells can make protein, whether that's proteins for enzyme production, for cell division, for antioxidant glutathione production, or whatever it is. There's all these different proteins. And all of a sudden that can happen because the amino acids got inside the cell. And I like to use the analogy that if you look at the average 80-year-old person, they tend to have lost muscle mass, significant amount. And so, but they're still eating protein in their diet like they did 10 to 20 years earlier. They're eating the same amount. And what's happening is it's not due to a dietary protein deficiency. It's due to a lack of growth factors, particularly IGF-1, that even though you're, absorbing amino acids maybe from the intestinal tract into the bloodstream, those amino acids are not going into the cells because you lack IGF-1, you lack testosterone, all your growth factors have declined. So if you could raise your growth factors back up to what they were 10 to 20 years ago, your body will start to function in that way. And one of the benefits of increasing growth hormone levels in your brain and body, first off, is that at night it will induce a deeper sleep. Growth hormone induces slow wave sleep, and that's what you need to get into REM sleep and get into full recuperation of the body, full repair of the body. So when people take Synergy 1, 99.9% of the time they say that they sleep deeper, they need less hours of sleep, they have more energy in the morning, they have a better mood, everything. So you've got that recovery happening for the 6 to 8 hours that you sleep. You're going to repair better. You're going to burn fat for fuel. That's another benefit of increasing growth hormone is you're just going to burn excess body fat out of the system. And so all these different protein structures are going to be upgraded and repaired better. So whether it's your joints and your cartilage or your discs, I have, many testimonies from people that have told me that all their joint pain and arthritis pain is 100% gone within 2 months or less on Synergy 1. Or we've had case histories of people with thin discs where they've grown them back so that all the pinched nerves are no longer being pinched, all their sciatica and all their nerve pain's gone. We've had people report reversing their osteoporosis, reversing their gum recession, gray hair reversing, wrinkles diminishing, basically everything about youth, because one of the other benefits about raising growth hormone and IGF-1 in the body is that it's raising your telomerase production. So telomerase is the enzyme that will lengthen the telomere. Telomeres are the end caps of the DNA so that every time the cell divides, they're shortened, and that's aging the cell. So as the telomeres shorten, after every cell division, you end up with a cell that's less youthful. So if you could produce more telomerase enzyme and then lengthen the telomere, you are making your cells younger, 10 to 20 years younger over 6 months. And I'll share more on the other side.
Yeah. Stephen, yours with us. Synergistic Nutrition, SGN80.com. 888-988-3325 is his number. 888-988-3325. We'll be right back. Stephen, yours with us, and Blake is engineering the broadcast today. If you'd like to call in, here's the number, 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. That's the call-in number. And so, Stephen, you're talking about Synergy 1, and I don't really talk about supplements that I don't consume myself or our family doesn't consume. So I've got, I took it before the broadcast, and I've been taking it for probably a year now. So I have it, and it's from Synergistic Nutrition, your company. So please continue.
Yeah. So this is one of the reasons why a person can gain the upper hand, and basically, if they had a health issue, it would help them to overcome it. So whether you've got you're behind the eight ball with a health issue, or you don't have any particular disease label, but you're over 40 years of age, you're going to feel this. You're going to enjoy the results because, in the end, the body is a protein structure predominantly, and you have millions to trillions of protein-related chemical reactions or protein creation going on in the body all the time. So anything that could assist in your body's ability to make protein is a youthening choice. So I started on Synergy 1 way back in 1998. I had chronic fatigue syndrome diagnosis in 1991, and so I didn't sleep through the night. It was just fatigued a lot. But when I took Synergy 1 for the first time in 1998, I slept through the night, and I felt really happy, really rested, really cheerful, lots of reserve energy the next day. It was quite miraculous. And
Stephen?
So I've been a fan of this product ever since. I've been promoting it for a long time, and I have, like I said, all these case histories, including some more serious ones, like we had about three different people on dialysis get onto Synergy One. They cleaned up their diet too, and in one case, the guy was on 12 meds. He had to get off of 9 of those meds. And anyways, in all these cases, within 4 months or less, they got off dialysis because it's a proven scientific fact in, endocrinology and metabolism textbook, that raising IGF-1 into the body repairs the kidneys. And the kidneys are not an organ system that repairs themselves really, really efficiently, because once you're older, 60 years of age or older, there's enough free radical damage, or there's enough high blood pressure or whatever that's damaged the kidneys enough that you could experience kidney failure and be on dialysis. So to be able to raise IGF-1 so that you could repair them is, it's quite miraculous. And I'm honored that I have those 3 clients that have reversed their kidney failure with using Synergy One. So,
Stephen, we have Margaret calling in from the country of Spain. Welcome, Margaret.
Hi, Vincent. How are you today?
Very, very well. You're on with Stephen Heuer of Synergistic Nutrition.
Hi, Stephen. I was listening to you last few minutes. Vincent, that I'm a human communication person, and I thought I'd talk about doctor-patient communication, but then Blake said, no, you're talking about nutritional supplements. So I said, well, I do have a few words to say about that, if I could.
Sure, go ahead.
And you just mentioned, Vincent, that you don't recommend anything that you or someone in your family doesn't personally use. I did have serious brain injury, and then I had a ruptured colon, and I was in a septic condition when they did emergency surgery last year. All of that, and I'm 68, okay, so the head injuries and stuff started at 67. And then I started, and I don't know if you all want me to talk about products from other people, but I take something called the Brain Force, which I knew I had to give nutrition proper and really focus on what my brain needed. And Brain Force has been extremely helpful to me for the past 2 years. Unfortunately, Margaret, you can't get it in Spain.
Margaret,
so Europe is not at all into the nutritional supplements like the U.S. is. So I have to offer
Margaret,
there.
let me ask Stephen. Let me ask Stephen the question. So, Stephen, what would you recommend someone do who has a brain injury? Because Margaret says that she has, and I know others personally who have been in car crashes and they've been hit by other people and have brain injuries. What would you recommend?
Well, this is where I'd recommend the Synergy One product. It increases nerve growth factor 1 and 2, which are essential to grow back new brain cells and heal the brain. So we've had great results in cognitive, and we've helped reverse Alzheimer's with Synergy One. So Brain Force may be good to provide basic nutrients, but to really repair the brain and heal it, the Synergy One is incomparable. Nothing can compare to it.
Hold that thought. We're going into a break. Stephen Heuer is with us. Margaret in Spain, the country of Spain, is with us. I just want to mention a couple of quick things. Here are some of the products that Synergistic Nutrition offers, Stephen Hewer's company, that I consume. Carbon 60, colostrum, lime water, Synergy One, just to name a few. Margaret, did you have another comment or question?
Yes, and I know you're changing to heart now, but I just have one succinct sort of general message. After major surgery and laying in a hospital with my body not functioning and having morphine and flaked ice for a week so my mind wasn't functioning, my conclusion was I must take control of what I intake, whatever I drink, eat, listen to, or see. I have to take control of my own body. Why? Because without my body, I'm not going anywhere. Now, and it took a while to get it functioning. Now, if my body finally gets working again, what about the head? So my message is, people, your body is yours. Some say it's your temple. Honor it and take care of it. Do not, I'm from New Orleans. They eat and drink everything they want to, and they don't care about anything. Pay attention if you care. It's time to wake up. You can take control. It will take work. It might be more expensive. Your other friends might not agree. That's all I want to say, Vincent. It's each person's responsibility to take as much control of their intake as possible in so many
Margaret, before you go, I have a comment. I don't know if you've heard Dr. Norman Shealy on this broadcast.
I have
he's
heard. Very interesting.
Okay. He would agree wholeheartedly, I believe, that your body is your temple. And to the point where he thinks it's desecration to tattoo your body. Okay?
I agree.
Okay. And
I get it.
In that line of thinking, I would love to hear Stephen Heuer's comments about what you just said about your body and your mind and healing after surgery. Stephen, what are your thoughts about recovering from surgery, that massive, massive insult to the body?
That the body basically produces stem cells on a regular basis, and if you nourish yourself with the right, like nutraceuticals, the right supplements, the right food, that you will increase your stem cell production so that they can migrate to wherever the surgery was to more completely heal the area. And that people basically, it's like they can either be a victim because they don't have the right knowledge, or they can take time to learn what they need to learn, become empowered, make the right decisions so that, your temple of your soul is basically so supported, both as she said, with the right kind of mental information, the right kind of liquids, the right kind of foods, so that, you're emotionally healthy, plus you're physically and mentally healthy, because the dementia that we're seeing today and all the different diseases we see today, the cardiovascular disease and everything else, they literally don't have to happen to a single person if they just unplug from commercial America and get back to living according to natural law.
Okay.
That's it.
On that line of thinking,
the food quality, and I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
On that line of thinking, just as an analogy, we know that we need to change the oil in our engines so that they don't wear out too quickly. Well, the government, the EPA in the United States, forced the engine oil manufacturers to remove two products. One was zinc and one was phosphorus. And those were anti-wear ingredients. So what we're seeing is engines wearing out faster as a result of having two ingredients taken out. That is analogous to what we're talking about with our food supply. And whenever I call Stephen Heuer, if it's during the daytime, he may say, I can come on the air with you, but I'm going to have to take time out from being in my garden. Is that right, Stephen?
Yeah, well, sometimes that's true. The garden, basically I had to do some stuff on the Friday that you wanted me to do the show with you, and I go, okay, well then I'm going to have to not work on my garden. But yeah, because I understand that I've studied, that's another part of nutrition that I've studied extensively, which is soil fertility and what plants require. And so now I know intellectually what's required, and nobody's getting that kind of food. Nobody's getting what's called high-brix food that's super high in calcium and sugar minerals. And when food is super high in what's called sugar minerals, the liver will function so much more efficiently. You produce 40% more protein, which then requires 40% less protein in the diet, and your cells renew themselves better, and you're just profoundly healthy. And then if you conceive children on this kind of a diet, they're going to become geniuses. They're just going to be physically and mentally perfect.
Yes, well, the destruction of the soil that's been going on and the depletion of the required nutrients, I'm walking around trying to find something to eat, okay? An organically grown tomato in New Orleans costs $5. Fortunately, I live in a part of Spain where they've been farming for thousands of years, and they enrich the soil. But it's a very big thing. That's it. It's very complicated. We have to become educated, and even if you're educated, you might be lazy. I have a lot of friends who are like that. And so get busy if you care. If you care about your body, your temple, your life, and your future, and your families.
The thing I say is that there's no laziness, there's just a lack of energy. And if I introduce people to the right supplements, they will have energy, and they will be motivated to do whatever they want to do in their lives. And they will be more inspired to take care of themselves food-wise, too. But if you put you could say low-vibration food into your body, it's only because you're so unhealthy that you're craving stimulation or sedation. And but if you get energetically healthy, you will instinctively crave good foods again.
Hallelujah. And as you said about the garden, nature is my heaven. I'm always outside. We need that. And so, thank you all for your time. I'm on the same wave. We have to treat ourselves well, see through the shadows and smoke, and it does take individual effort and conviction. Unless you're the king and somebody cares for you. So that was my message. I wasn't doing this 2 years ago, but now I know it's up to me, and I'm not putting in things that are not good for me, and learn to discriminate, So that was my message. I really don't want to take up more of y'all's time. Thank you, Victor, very much. Vincent, sorry.
Margaret, and, you've got my home phone number, yes?
I do. We'll be in touch.
You can call me. Best time is in the evening because as a farmer, I am really busy during daylight hours. So if you wanted to chat, I'd love to have you come on the air with us as an instructor. I think it'd be wonderful. Okay. Margaret, thank you so much for being with us. There goes Margaret. And she was calling in from the country of Spain. Stephen, so I've heard so many medical doctors say, oh, no, you don't need to take supplements. You don't. You get all that you need from your food. And
that's the myth.
I would always ask, and I would always ask, well, is there anything else I should be doing? Anything else I should be consuming? Anything else I should be taking? Oh, no. And then when I had a male doctor, he's about 20 years younger than I. And he was looking at my test results, and he said, yours are better than mine. And he's like annoyed. I thought that was quite interesting. I thought that was really quite interesting that he said that. And but he was programmed. He was programmed by his medical school that in the 8 hours of nutrition, I guess, that he studied, that you don't need to...
despite the mountains of evidence of people that have reversed their diabetes, their cancer, their cardiovascular disease, or whatever through intense attention to their diet and supplementation, despite the mountains of evidence that's out there, it's ignored by the mainstream establishment, of course, because it's not profitable for them to sell, a bottle of B vitamins, coenzymatic B vitamins that will address lowering your homocysteine levels and protect you from cardiovascular disease when they can sell you a statin drug that's super expensive to lower your cholesterol that doesn't actually address the cause of your cardiovascular disease. It's more profitable to sell the drugs than recommend the supplements,
Stephen, when I meet people and they find out that I'm 65 years old, generally the comment is, you don't look 65.
Yeah.
And when I look at you, you don't look your age. So obviously there's something to what we're doing, obviously. And,
your body's designed to live 120 or 150 years if you took care of it correctly. And a lot of people aren't going to be able to live, even if they took care of it correctly, they're not going to necessarily live that long because there's too many negative factors environmentally, pollution, negative electromagnetic fields that are all, prohibiting our bodies from, living the full genetic lifespan. But animals, they live 5 times, once they reach maturity, they live 5 times their age of maturity. So it should be the same for humans, which is like 149 years.
Stephen, since you mentioned electromagnetic radiation, I bought 15-foot cables to connect the mice and keyboards and monitors from the computers. I'm in the studio, there are 4 monitors in front of me. I need them in order to broadcast. But I can't, from where I'm sitting, I cannot reach a single monitor. I cannot touch it. It's farther away than my outstretched arm can reach. The computers are on the other side of the room, attached to 15-foot cables. So I'm taking it to that extreme. And I've contacted our electricity provider, the electric co-op, and they have engineered and moving our smart meter away from the house, at least 200 feet away, possibly 700 feet away, depending on how much money I want to spend to do it. But they will do it. They will do it in our case. Well, we have enough land to do that, but I could, depending on the voltage drop I'm willing to accept for our farm, I can literally have the smart meters moved. But if you live on a quarter of an acre, that's difficult to do because to move it much farther, you're going to be on your neighbor's property.
Right.
But that's a possibility, class. Stephen, when we come back, do we have enough time to talk about cardiovascular health, or do you want to do that next time? What would you like to do?
So I'll cover a couple other things, yeah.
Okay, all right, we'll be right back. Stephen Heuer's with us. And, class, if you'd like to contact Stephen Heuer, his company number is 888-988-3325. And if you'd like to arrange a consultation, and you can talk privately with Stephen Heuer, that's something that you can do. And you can call that number and arrange for a private consultation. And also, that's the order line. If you want to go to the website, sgn80.com. sgn80.com. And that stands for Synergistic Nutrition, sgn80.com. Stephen, in the commercial that I am just delighted to have on usaprepares.com, actually your commercials, I feel so strongly, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I have the right as a broadcaster of this broadcast, USA Prepares, to jettison any commercials I don't like. So if I don't like one, out they go, really. And I just want to let you know that I'm delighted that I'm hearing your commercials on USA Prepares.
Thank you.
Thank you. Also, during the last commercial that I heard, during the last commercial break, you talk about mineral sugars. Now, is there a way, do you offer a device to test for mineral sugars?
I don't, but there's a company called Pike Labs, P-I-K-E-L-A-B-S, Labs. They sell these refractometers, and it's just a little telescope of a device with a slanted prism at the end of it that you can look through, and when you put a few drops of the juice of your fruit or vegetable onto that prism and you lay down the flap and then you look up into the light, you can see the light being bent at a certain line, and that line graduates from like 0 all the way up to like 33. And so each fruit and vegetable has a range in which it's considered poor quality, good quality, fair quality, and excellent quality. And there's a chart you can get. You can find it online. Just look up like BRICS chart, fruit vegetable BRICS chart, B-R-I-X. And so if you have that little device, which I think they're like $50 to $70, but once you've got that device, then you can be your own little scientist to realize, you can convince yourself at that point, once you do a BRICS analysis of your fruits and vegetables, even the organic ones, that they're so low in mineral sugars that you must supplement. If you want to experience freedom from colds and flus, the best energy possible, live a long life free of disease, you have to supplement to make up for this because your body needs these mineral sugars. They're not there, so you have to take the appropriate calcium and trace minerals to compensate. But yeah, it's called Pike Labs. And the other thing I wanted to just say regarding smart meters, if I may, is that there's a company called Power Movement, inpowermovement.com that you can go to, and they provide to you the documents necessary for you to submit to your power company to get your smart meter taken off and replaced with an analog meter. It's worked successfully throughout Canada and the United States. There's various people that have done this. They've also prevented smart meters from being put on their homes because basically it's a trespassing technology. It's violating your right to privacy because they're doing an analysis of how much power you're using for each of your particular pieces of appliances, and they're also harming you with this frequency. Basically, it's 900 kilohertz of microwaves that's bending and destroying protein structures in your body if you're ever near it. So it's very disruptive to your health, and it also destroys honeybees' ability to navigate. So entire hives will die if they're anywhere near these smart meters because of the effect it has on disrupting their ability to navigate through frequencies. So inpowermovement.com if anybody wants to protect themselves and get rid of their smart meter or prevent it from being put on their home.
Well, after the broadcast today, I will go to inpowermovement.com, and I'm interested in what you said. Stephen Heuer, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to having you back in a couple of weeks if that works for you.
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much, Vincent. Bye.
Great. Thank you. Synergistic Nutrition, SGN80.com, 888-988-3325. We'll be right back. George in New Hampshire will be with us. We're going to be talking about gun shows, what's going on, and other things. They're all set, cocked, locked. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. George in New Hampshire is with us. George is a USA Prepares instructor, and he had been calling in for quite some time. And I thought, gosh, I think George and I are on the same page. So I asked George if I could get his number. I called him up. This was quite a while ago. And, yep, we're on the same page. And I invited George to be an instructor. So he's here again for the full hour. Welcome, George.
Hi, Vincent.
Hey, I was telling Blake, we were chatting with Blake, our engineer, during the top of the hour news. I said that George will be calling in, and while we're awaiting his call, we chatted for a little bit, and I mentioned to him that the cost of my education at the university when I went in the 1970s was $20,000 total, and how it's so much more expensive today. And then I mentioned to him that right after I graduated, I was offered a position with a Fortune 100 company, which was probably one of the best companies I've ever had the privilege of working with. And they had a tuition reimbursement program, which they would pay 90% of the cost of your tuition if you maintain an average of B or better, which is a 3.0. Well, what I mentioned to him was I decided that I would go on for my next degree at night. And they paid 90% of the cost of my education. But they also changed the policy. They also said, hey, we can't have this. This guy's going to school full-time at night. He gave himself a 50% raise by going to school. And we can't do this anymore. We can't allow our employees to give themselves raises in the 50% range by going to school. So they changed the policy. But so I wanted to mention and the reason I'm talking about this is, class, if you have the opportunity to take classes and your company, if you're fortunate enough to have a job and your company will pay for your tuition or a portion of it, you might want to seriously consider doing that, because it is like getting a raise. No kidding. Now, it's not like it's not necessarily easy. It's work. But if you can find an area of study that you're passionate about, it kind of makes sense to me to do it. Okay? George, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah. I know for a fact my son returned from the military about a little over a year ago. Well, the place where he continued, I guess, under the law, they had to hold his position while he was on active duty. They have that same policy where they'll send you to school, only I think they require you to give them like an extra year once you get your training, your education stuff, where you give some of that back to the company in terms of maybe a year, maybe a little more than a year. And he's got I call it the GI Bill because I'm from the old military, but they have educational benefits with the military that I think a lot of states even allow veterans to attend for free state schools. And like you said, Vincent, $20,000 wouldn't even pay for half a year at a lot of these schools today. And yet I can remember, like you, in other words, it was in the hundreds of dollars say, for a semester, as opposed to the tens of thousands of dollars, right?
Right. And so at this point, education is so expensive. I don't know how a person who's paying, the full ride can get out of debt if they borrow that money. Will that the cost of education, will there be a break-even point that's reasonable? I don't know. There are plenty of self-made people, and I think that's wonderful. Now, for me, an education was great. And I was telling Blake that after I graduated, my dad, who was a teacher, a science teacher, music teacher, so he taught the hard sciences, physics, chemistry, and he was a principal, and he was an acting superintendent. So that his entire professional life was involved in education. And so when I graduated, he put his arm around me and said, "Well, son, what'd you learn in 4 years?" And I said, "Well, Dad, I learned a few facts, and I learned how to think." And his reaction was less than positive. It was, "What?" I guess he expected me to say something else other than what I said. I don't know what he expected that I would say. Like I learned, these formula. I learned, some calculus. I don't know exactly what he thought I would say. But what I said was what I really did learn, and that was a few facts and how to think through problems, how to solve problems, employ some creativity, think differently, and I'm still like that. And so that's really what happened to me. And I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was a pretty neat experience. I had two wonderful male roommates, both electrical engineers. We are friends to this date. I got a chance to, through osmosis, learn about electricity and electronics, and built some interesting things. They built some really, really cool devices, and I looked at their designs, and I found ways that with less knowledge about the subject matter, I could improve on them, and that was kind of neat. So it was a great synergistic relationship we had. They learned things from me, I learned things from them, and we're friends to this date, and that's decades ago. So I just wanted to share that. The main thing I wanted to share was that you can give yourself a raise, and you can learn more, but it takes a little bit more work than just doing a swan dive on the couch after work and hitting that remote and watching some mindless programming. So you can do better. And if you look at a guy that I kind of despise, actually I do despise him, Mark Zuckerberg. I despise what he has accomplished. Not that he's successful. I don't have a problem with his success, but I have a problem with what he's done with the information that people have given him. He doesn't have a television in his house. They don't watch TV. They don't put their mind in park. They're working. And is it working for him? Yeah. He's one of the world's most richest people. Yeah, and he did it by, 33 years old. Pretty impressive accomplishment. I don't like the subject matter that he used to get there. I don't like the deception that he used, but yet he pulled it off. And so the people who were going to interrogate him in Congress, they're gushing all over him. They couldn't wait to beg him for favors. So, and the guy's a nerd. Looks like a nerd, acts like a nerd, dresses like a nerd.
Did you notice, Vincent, though, they threw hardball questions at him like, well, do you feel like Facebook is a monopoly? And then he with his very learned and studious answer was, well, I don't feel that it is. Mm-hmm. Now it's a quote.
Yep.
All right?
Yep.
Now, I don't want to say anything, but if that's the picture of success, then I guess, the world has really flipped. And and I think the man's a figurehead anyway, but I mean, what kind of an answer is that? And they let him get away with it. So you kind of say to yourself, just how much theater is it and how much of reality it is,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and many of us believe that Facebook has been funded by the government corporation because they want to know. They want to know more about us every day. I've got an agricultural census form that they want me to fill out. I'm not willing to do it. I'm not willing to do it because I'm not willing to attest that these are facts that I'm submitting, because I can't answer the questions truthfully, accurately, factually that they want to know. How many chickens, goats, sheep, how many horsepower, how many gallons, who's making the decisions, of all the people who are making decisions in the family, what percentage of the decisions are made by whom. They expect me to fill out these matrices that it's personal information. You know, as far as I'm concerned, the government can stuff it. I'm not willing to do it. I am not willing to, and they've threatened me, and they've said, you know, you are legally, under the law, you are required. I'm saying, I can't do it. I can't do it. Now, if they want to pay me $100 an hour, you know, with a $1,000 minimum, I'll consider working on it. But it would take me probably hundreds of hours in order to complete this accurately. And then by the time I completed it, it would change. So there's no way that anybody can complete this. And there are people in our neck of the woods who are saying, I don't know what to do with this. It's so complicated. It's worse than the 1040. It's way worse.
No,
because
the census?
Yeah, the agricultural census.
Yeah. Okay. See, I didn't realize there was an agricultural census. It's completely different and separate from the regular census?
Oh,
or
yeah.
is it part and parcel?
Oh, no. This is separate. And literally, they want to know how many tractors you have under 40 horsepower, how many tractors 40 to 99 horsepower, how many tractors 99 plus horsepower, which ones of these are fueled with diesel, which ones are fueled with, gasoline. They want to know about things like how many animals do you have, how many are you going to have, in your family, who makes the decisions. Is it person number 1, 2, 3, or 4? And of the people in your family, as a farm family, what percentage of the decisions are made by person number 1? What percentage are made by person number 2, and so forth? During the commercial break, I'll go get it if I can find it. It might have gone the way of 86. I guess that's a military term for.
To see. We're both on the same page. I'll tell you a story after you're done with yours. I have a story to tell you.
Yeah, we'll be right back. George in New Hampshire's with us. I found it. I went into the kitchen, and I said to Mrs. Finelli, have you seen the agricultural census? She said, yeah, it's right there. It's in the trash. And I said, what trash? She said, the burn trash. So what we do is we separate our trash. We separate our trash, like if there are cans, we'll wash them out and put them in the kitchen trash, to go to the landfill. And if it has BTU value and it's not plastic, if it's paper or cardboard and it's not from China, we will burn it and for the heat value. So I opened it up, and it says agricultural, USDA 2017 Census of Agriculture, your voice, your future, your opportunity. And then below that it says, your response is required by law. Then in red it says, overdue, return in 10 days. So I opened it up, and I've got the 8.5 by 14 instruction sheet. It says instruction sheet on it. This is fine print, and it is 4 pages of 8.5 by 14 fine print instructions of how to complete the 16 pages of more information that they want. And let me just give you a few of these items. Okay, 16 pages. Okay. Let me get to something that will be understandable. Okay. Section number 4. During 2017, considering the total acres of this operation, how many acres were drained by tile, were artificially drained by ditches, were under a conservation easement, During 2017, considering the cropland acres of this operation, how many acres were no-till practices used? Were reduced conservation tillage, including or excluding no-till drill practices used? Were intensive tillage practices used? Were planted to cover a crop? Cover crops are planted primarily for managing soil fertility, soil quality, and controlling weeds, pests, and diseases. During 2017, considering the acres irrigated by sprinklers, flooding, ditches, or furrows, drip or trickle irrigation, how many acres? How many acres were harvested, cropland, or irrigated? How many acres of pasture land, rangeland, abandoned cropland, or other land were irrigated? How many acres on this operation were irrigated at least once in the past 5 years? Okay, that's just one small section. Now, for me to figure that out, I don't know. If I actually...
You have to hire somebody to run the ranch while you're doing that.
Yes. And then there's a matrix.
Oh, God.
And this is Section 8, Personal Characteristics. In 2017, how many men and women were involved in the decisions for this operation? Include family members and hired managers. Exclude hired workers unless they were a hired manager or a family member, okay? Now, they want to know how many men and how many women. And there's a matrix. And it says person number 1, person number 2, person number 3, and person number 4. And they want the following information about these 4 persons. The full name, is this person completing the form? The sex of the person. What is the person's age? What is the person, number 1, 2, or 3, or 4, are they Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin? What is the race? White, black, or African American, American Indian, or Alaskan Native, specify the tribe, an Asian, or a Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islander.
Excuse me, Vincent.
Yeah.
I think a very appropriate and responsible way to answer this is I would put 3 signatures at the bottom. Actually 4, okay? It would be you, Mrs. Finelli, then I'd get that big Mastiff dog you get and put his pat on that, put that, and then I'd get one of the chickens who was nearby, grab him, and put that on the stamp, and then stamp that, and then this way, I think effectively that would cover most of it, wouldn't it?
I got to tell you, the amount of information that these guys want is it's increasing and increasing and increasing. And they've threatened me in the past about I couldn't seem to find it, and I kept saying, "No, send it to me. I'll take a look at it." But they want to know, in addition, who makes the decisions and about crop grazing, livestock decisions, breeding, pasturing. We'll go into it a little bit more when we come back. So we're talking about the 2017 United States Census of Agriculture, and I don't want to belabor the point, but just there are 2 columns. Regarding machinery and equipment. This is section 16 of the 16-page questionnaire. Actually, there are 22 sections total in 16 pages. Section 16 is machinery and equipment. And it says, for the items listed below, report the number on this operation on December 31st, 2017. Include machinery, equipment, implements used for the farm, business, or used for the farm or ranch business, okay? And so they have 2 columns. One is the number of items on December 31st, 2017, and another column, they want to know, of these, how many of them were manufactured in the last 5 years. So they want to know how many trucks, including pickups, were in operation and how many were manufactured within the last 5 years. They want to know how many tractors less than 40 horsepower were in operation and how many were manufactured within the last 5 years. How many tractors 40 to 99 horsepower, tractors 100 horsepower or more, grains and bean combines. And then they want to know how many cotton pickers and strippers, and they want to know how many forage harvesters, and they want to know how many hay balers. They want to know how many, and how many of them were manufactured in the last 5 years. There are 99 categories of, they want to know of the crops, how many were of these types, and there are 99 types. And they say that if you can't fit them in the eight spaces, that the field crop name, the code, the acres, the total production harvested, the acres irrigated, and the gross value in sales and dollars. If you don't have enough room for each of those in the 8 lines provided, you just add another page and continue on. It's unbelievable. They want to know expenses. They want to know how much you spent on fertilizer, lime, and soil conditioners, including rock, phosphate, gypsum, manure, potting soil, growing media, and other organic materials. Then they want to know about the chemicals that you purchase. And there are 17 questions relating to that.
Yeah. Vincent, I remember I saw a writing on the wall back almost 20 years ago when Clinton was in. They came out with that. It was the first time. Normally a census was just how many people living in the home, their names, their ages, and basically that was about it. I remember the police officer would come around. I can remember my mother answering the door, and I can remember her giving the information, and I think the whole thing was over in a matter of under 5 minutes. But the thing I'm saying, to interrupt you, is just that I remember under Clinton, they came up with a 21-page census form. I didn't fill it out. But the thing was, I realized that what they were doing was building a grid, building an information grid, and Facebook is just another aspect of the facet of that so-called diamond, is that between the census and this, they want to know basically almost your every waking moment's activities and everything about you that'll be to their advantage someday to somehow hold you captive, where basically we're colluding with our jailers to build the very prison in which we're going to be moved into.
That's a very good point, and you mentioned the police. When I lived in Virginia, I returned the census form exactly with what you said, how many people lived in the house on that date. And I sent it back. And they called me, and finally they sent the police. They sent one of the deputies from, I guess he was a former deputy. They sent him, big guy. And I was baling hay on the field on the other side of the farm. And it was getting toward dark, and I saw my son racing across the field. And he said, so I stopped the baler, and he said, "Hey, Dad, there's a guy here, and he wants to talk to you about the census." I was, "Geez, gosh, don't these guys ever give up?" So I said, "Well, tell him to come on over." So I'm across the field. He has to cross the creek to get to me, right? So my son rode over on his dirt bike, and that's one of the tools that we use as a tax deduction on our farm, and we use it on the farm to get around. And so he hopped on the dirt bike, and he rode across the stream, and he came over to see me, and I said, "Come on, tell him to come on over. Do you know that guy drove across the field, across the creek in his pickup truck and followed me around with the baler? Literally, I'm baling hay, and all this dust is coming out of the back of the baler." And I said, "Look, I don't have time for this." And he said, "Well, let me just go through this." And he wanted to know, how many Mexicans. And I said, "I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you how many Mexicans live here. I'm not going to tell you how many Chinese or Germans live here either. I'm only going to tell you what I told you, and I'm not going to tell you any more. And that is all I'm legally obliged to tell you, is how many people lived here on that date, and I did it, and that's all." He said, "Well, let's go to the next question." I said, "I'm going to give you the same answer." So for all the questions, I gave him all the same answers. In the dark, it went from getting dark to dark, and he stayed with me, and he wasn't going to give up. And then they pulled that same nonsense.
He was dealing with somebody who would outlast him.
Well, he was being paid by the hour, I guess.
Right.
But I don't have time. I don't have time for this. I was talking to a guy at the electric cooperative, and he said, "I'm sorry, it's taken me a couple days to get back to you. I've been in meetings." And I said, "Yeah, I used to have a job. I know what that's like." I said, "Well, what I used to do was I wouldn't go to the meetings." And he kind of laughed, and I said, "Yeah, because I had stuff to do. I was busy doing what they hired me to do, not talking about things. I was busy. I was busy completing the tasks that were important to the company. I wasn't going to meetings and just wasting time. And I guess he realized that, there's some truth to that.
But if I may...
I've got a question for you.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, you went to parochial schools before you went to the Jesuit run, right?
No, I was in the public training camp up until high school. And then for high school, I went to the Jesuit institution, where I spent 4 years. You got an intensive... No, I had a reason for asking. See, I went about half public, half parochial. But you know and I know, when you're in the Catholic schools, whether it be the Jesuit, you want a more intensive one, and more, Ivy, the Ivy League of the Catholic schools, we'll say, right? I'm just saying is that they were hard on us, but they taught us how to think, and also they taught us discipline, and they taught us a lot of things, even to the point that when I ended up in the military, I laughed at some of the sergeants who were trying to be hard on me, because I said to myself, I had nuns, but teachers that were tougher than you guys, and I smiled. And sometimes, but what I'm saying is that our minds are trained because we were given objectives to do, problems to solve, and assignments. We didn't have all this socialization, so-called. The socialization was just working together inside of the classroom, So I just wanted to say that, but that's why, that served us well in life. And increasingly, because of what they're turning out for a lot of these schools, and because of the age, as we get older, the competition gets thinner and thinner, doesn't it, Ben? If you know what I'm trying to say when I say competition. In other words, a lot of people don't have that mental discipline. They don't have the stick-to-itness. They can't think inside the box or outside the box, because a lot of them just studied to get that passing grade on the test, and it wasn't about learning. It was about just plugging in the answers and the multiple choices and giving them what they wanted. And in the end, if you came back a day, 3 days, 7 days, that's why I think your dad was surprised by your answer, because in the time that he went to school, it was even more intensive. And he was taught a lot more that they said the average college graduate couldn't pass an later 1800s test that was given in these schoolhouses out in the countryside, because these people could literally almost just build a village, right? Yes, I've seen some of those tests. Absolutely brilliant. And you really had to know reading, writing, arithmetic, problem solving. You had to know it cold in order to pass that test. And that was before calculators. That was before computers. That was before spell checking. That was before, search engine research. That was the way we learned, the hard way to learn. And when I wanted to go for a job interview, I would research that company before the interview. And I would spend at least a day or two at the library to research the company prior to the interview, so that when it was time for me to speak and during the interview, and the interviewer said, so why do you want to work here? I could say, well, your president's name is... and the vice president of manufacturing is. I like your company's vision, mission statement. I know what it is, and if I were questioned on it, I could recite it because I was prepared. I didn't just go there and so Vincent, why do you want to work here? Because I need a job. I mean, that's the wrong answer. You're not going to get the job if you say that. So I had a pretty good batting average when I applied for companies, because I knew about the companies. I knew that I wanted to work there, because I wasn't going to waste my time or theirs on an interview for some position that I was not interested in. And it worked out well for me. So yeah, and it was part of that. It was part of that Roman Catholic Jesuit instruction that I received, and it was not easy. I mean, it was tough to survive 4 years of high school. think college was a lot easier. Yeah. And you mentioned a word. I'd like to get back to it when we come back, and then maybe we can talk about gun shows. Stick-to-itiveness. Stick-to-itiveness. I don't know if it's in the encyclopedia or in the dictionary or not. So glad we were talking about the agricultural census because I was able to rescue it from the burn trash. I guess it got inadvertently put in there, so now it's right on top of my to-do list. So as soon as I'm done with farming and earning a living, or trying to earn a living, then I can get right to helping the USDA with their request for information. I'm really looking forward to helping them. Now, you mentioned the word stick-to-itiveness. So I looked it up. It's defined in the dictionary, and it says it's the quality that allows someone to continue trying to do something even though it's difficult or unpleasant. Thomas Edison is quoted as saying, the three great essentials to achieve anything worthwhile are, first, hard work. Second, stick-to-itiveness. Third, common sense. And I believe Thomas Alva Edison is absolutely right. Because when he was working on the light bulb, I believe he said he knew of 800 things or 8,000 things that don't work, but he's getting closer. That kind of response.
Yeah, I remember with the light bulb.
Any comments,
they
George,
said
before
he found 2,000 ways he couldn't make one.
Yep. George, what's happening with gun shows? I know that you and I have gone to them over the years. Have you seen any changes in what is being offered, what people are interested in, the attendance? Have you seen anything over the last 2 or 3 decades?
Well,
I've
noticed
seen some.
that. I'm sorry, what? Your last part, I didn't.
I've noticed some, and I'd like to hear. Yeah, I'd like to hear what your thoughts are.
Well, I noticed that under the previous regime that we had in the office, the executive office of the country, there was like a panic buying right up until when it looked basically like, well, it was almost like, well, Hillary's going to waltz in, so, it's a done deal and all the rest of it. I saw a lot of gun dealers stocking up on a lot of the more, on certain types of pots that they assumed were going to get basically very scarce very soon. Well, I noticed when I was at a recent gun show that I noticed people had more money to spend. And they weren't panic buying, but at the same time, there was a fairly steady business going on where people were bringing firearms that they had that they wanted to trade in or they wanted to sell, cash in. And I saw some interesting pieces. And in fact, it's funny because there was one that I had mentioned to you on a phone conversation because the day before that weekend of the show, I had mentioned a certain type of bolt action that could fire pointed or Spitzer rounds as opposed to lever action with the same .30-30 caliber. And a gentleman, very nice gentleman, walked up to my table, and he had inherited something from his uncle, and lo and behold, in the case was the very thing that I had described to you, and I had regretted selling a while ago. And there it was. And like I said, it's a very interesting place. You meet people, you talk, you find out the histories of things. You'll see more under one roof than you'll see in probably just about any gun shop you could ever walk into because you oftentimes it's hundreds of dealers. But I did see a steady, brisk business, and I have a feeling that people have more confidence in the economy because I've just noticed changes when I get outside of the valley here where I'm in, where things are kind of static. I've noticed a lot of confidence, and a lot of people were buying, and they were buying measuredly, but they were buying in a normal course of event. Like, in other words, they felt free and they felt like the economy was going good, so they had the expendable cash.
What have you seen in reloading? Because it looks to me like people who used to be interested in reloading are fewer and farther between. I don't see much powder. I don't see. Yeah.
Well, I noticed too, if you go to a range, there's more brass on the ground where in our Father's Day, they would pick that stuff up. That wouldn't be laying around there because they were recycling it, you know. And I noticed too, that most people really just would much rather go up and buy a box as opposed to, you know, extend its life.
Yeah. We're out of time. George, hey, thank you so much for being with us today. Yeah, we're out of time. Hey, thanks so much.